All right, guys, we're about ready to move along here. We're going to try to put the ideas up on the board here. Now remember, all these ideas that you've discussed are still going to be carried over. We just want to get a feeling for the top ideas different tables had that we're going to put up here. But that doesn't mean we're not going to continue to look at the other ideas that aren't the top 5 that you've come up with tonight.
Okay, number 1, many of you may have, but we have closed campus. The second one we had would be mandatory education awareness for parents and for students. Okay, the third would be parent patrol. If we kept open campus, then the parent patrol during lunch hours. And the last one would be random drug testing. Any student that would be an extracurricular activity, or it could be with parents, volunteering, but everyone would have a chance to be randomly drug tested. And that's it for Group 1.
We too felt that mandatory testing, we talked about the rules that are in place for athletes already in this state as sort of a precedent, and it sounds like, it could go from there. So some form of mandatory testing. Sharing information with other parents, that's a place to start. Ongoing, not just information, but support, because once you have that information, sometimes it's hard to know what to do with it, and this is a very emotional topic. We're talking about our kids, and it's really difficult, so that's very important to have. Teen court, I think that's something new we can throw in here. We had a former prosecutor here, and we had Margot Bristow, so we had some ringers in the group, but that's a new idea for getting some to us about students. So yeah, I think high school or students, an idea of a student court that would bring more of a peer idea into it. The prevention specialist, we need to have someone on the ground. We were saying, we really need to clone this lady, but in the absence of that, we need to get funding to have someone who specializes in prevention, so we can catch more of this at an earlier level, because it is such a spectrum.
In terms of parents, we talked about sending out an email, maybe in the beginning of the school year, giving statistic information, not just the numbers, but the health impact, that kind of thing, as well as suggestions on how to be a parent of a teen. Call if there's a party, don't have a lake house with a big party. Just, giving the parents advice on how to figure out what's really going on in their kids' lives. In terms of the police, we were told that it's really hard for the police to find the kids when we call. So if we could educate the community around the school, if you see a group of kids and they're doing something, here's what you should do, here's what you should look for, so that when you call us, you can tell us specifically what they're wearing, etc. So if we just could educate the community around here and how to help the police out a little better. Also, it came to our attention that the police can only prosecute parents if other parents are willing to go after them. If there's a party at their house and there's alcohol, that the parents have to complain against those parents. They have to do, what's the term? Charge them. And of course, most of us parents don't want to charge another parent, so we were looking into, could the law be changed so that it didn't require another parent to want to press charges. And then in terms of what the school could do, we talked about revamping the health program. Some of you don't know, but in the summer, it's not even necessarily OPRF staff teaching health. So there's not a whole lot of consistency. So we talked about revamping the health program to include more education on drugs, perhaps creating assemblies that were mandatory for the kids on survivor stories, that kind of thing.
One of the first things we talked about was a commitment form that parents would sign. I think this happened way back when, at some point during the high school, where you had to sign a commitment form that you would not serve alcohol at your house. And in the PTO book, it had an asterisk there so that every parent could tell that you were someone who signed that commitment form, and you were at least aware that if I sent my kid to your house, there was some assurance that there was not an alcohol party going on there. So that was one thing we talked about. Kind of combining a few thoughts here. Some type of a parent orientation night, how to be a parent of a high schooler, type of a class or orientation night, something along those lines. I'm combining a few ideas here. Another idea was to get again, along the ideas of strategies, parent strategies, lists or questions that the community citizens council rather could send out as far as, I think the woman before brought up, how do parents talk to parents? And I think the one thing in our group that everyone landed on was, why is so much of this activity still going on campus? You know, why is there not a zero tolerance on campus?
Most of ours were already covered, but we had closed campus, whatever form that might take. Drug testing, again, suspicion-based or random, whatever form it would take. Parent group like to change the norms of parents, which is kind of the sharing information and support network kind of thing. IDs, which it sounds like we're going to have, and then more substance abuse counselor or counselors, one or more, trying to figure out how many are needed and then getting that number.
Well, we talked about starting drug education and awareness earlier in the middle schools and younger. There has to be more effort in that area. We talked about the orientation, strategies for orientation, for freshman orientation, and ongoing awareness and education. But the part that we talked about for the freshmen might be a combined parent and student orientation, so that students would know what their parents are knowing and parents would know what their kids are hearing too, which might facilitate greater openness and communication. And finally, in terms of community organizations and social service organizations, just to sort of better sort of publicity and publicizing of resources and awareness and getting that information easier, making it easier for parents, for students, for everybody to become informed about resources.
First thing, basically a systematic review of what other schools are doing to manage the leaving school, closed campus issues, space, and substance abuse problems. So best practices surveys, you note there. Number two, basically better security, enforcing closed at schools, yeah. Enforcing closed campus policies for freshmen, or even just ramping it up entirely and closing the campus, period. Another thing, more drug counselors and more funding for prevention efforts, period. Julian and Brooks should both take the IYS, the Illinois Youth Survey. Currently they don't. Roosevelt too? Yeah, all middle schools. Developing of, real parent networks so that you are methodically checking in on the houses where your kids are with the parents, establishing face-to-face relationships wherever possible, going to those houses, saying, hi, here's who I am, looking them in the eye, having them look you in the eye, possibly supplementing that with even a fact sheet for parents for how to go about doing this.
We have a lot of great ideas here. We just scratched the surface tonight. This is the beginning of a long process, which is why I really want you to work on becoming part of the action team, signing up on that sheet to take this to the next step. Obviously there are some ideas here that we have a lot of consensus on moving forward. I think that, the idea is that we start planning to get something prepared by September, that we can start working with the school and the community. But beyond that, in the interim, between now and the next meeting, which will be in about 2 weeks, and we're going to start prioritizing these and start formulating what we're exactly going to do, how much money we're going to spend, where we're going to get money from, how we're going to move forward on this. So I urge you to sign up for the action team and come to that next meeting, and the next meeting after that, and the next meeting, because that's what it's going to take. It's going to take meeting after meeting after meeting. All right, so I hope at a minimum we learned today that we all have a lot of things in common as far as what our concerns are. And I hope that's been empowering a little bit. I hope that there's a better feeling that maybe we can accomplish something. I hope at least you take that away from this.